Daimon Hellstrom, half-demon mage and perpetual guest star, created during Marvel's supernatural boom, whose successes emboldened Stan Lee to order the creation of a character based on Satan. Literally, as his marching orders were exactly, "I want a title called Son of Satan. Do it!" Still, despite being the literal spawn of the devil, well, not really, his dad's changed like 3 times, Daimon Hellstrom was a heroic character who chose to hold on to his humanity, which came from his mother's side. This worked well and was a sharp contrast to his sister Satana, real subtle, who had no issues being Daddy's demonic descendant. The two siblings formed a nice yin-yang combo, one struggling to hold the darkness within at bay and the other embracing it to their advantage. And here's where my problem starts. Daimon Hellstrom has often been written as an evil character, with the twist of it being there was no reason provided by the team who chose to use him this way. Now, the comic readers among you are probably aware of the most well-known example, when Daimon Hellstrom was part of the Masters of Evil in Avengers Undercover. But that wasn't the first time. The first one that I could find was in the pages of the miniseries Druid. For context, Marvel had given Daimon Hellstrom his own series in the 90s called Hellstrom, Prince of Lies, which definitely looks like the House of Ideas had some Vertigo envy going on. Well, in that series, Hellstorm, yes, he changes his name, and yes, it doesn't last, is a darker character, but still mostly acted in a way that could be considered okay. I mean, yeah, he's an asshole, but he would still try to help people and didn't actively try to harm anyone innocent until his series ends and we get to Druid, that is. So the only context that I'm going to provide for Druid is that it was a mini about the character Anthony Ludgate, aka Dr. Druid, who people would best remember for topping the worst Avenger ever lists on the internet, not undeservedly. Near the end of the series, Druid gets all the power he was looking for and is shot in the back by the villainous Necro, who is working for Daimon Hellstrom. Then, according to the narration, the two burn his body in a garbage can. Now, Dr. Druid may have been weak-willed, arrogant, lustful for both power and the ladies, murderous, insane, sociopathic. Okay, now that I say all of this out loud, it's difficult for me to fault Daimon for orchestrating his death. I mean, it wasn't right, but the main issue here is that no one knows that Hellstrom was the one behind Druid's death. However, the next instance of this is even less excusable. In the pages of Fear Itself, The Fearless, and the series Venom, Daimon Hellstrom chooses to work for Hydra out of his free will and create monsters for them. Now, this did have some setup in a previous arc of Venom, Circle of Fire, which I will always remember for having a fusion of Red Hulk, the Spirit of Vengeance, and the Venom symbiote, where Daimon seems to be very interested in several characters, having a hell mark at the end of that story. See, there was apparently a prophecy about this thing called the Descent, which meant that one of the Hell Lords would become the devil, and he wanted the power that came along with it. Now, there is a classic Marvel explanation provided later as to Daimon being evil, namely that he cloned himself and sent those clones out into the world, with some of them being heroes, like the Daimon Hellstrom who shows up in Brian Michael Bendis' New Avengers, or villains, like the one working with Hydra in Fear Itself. However, this explanation is never brought up after this story, which is a shame because it might have helped with our next and most blatant example. In Avengers Undercover, Daimon Hellstrom is one of the members of the Masters of Evil and is written in such a way that he may have always been an evil character. There is no setup, no reasoning. He's just evil for evil's sake. And we don't even get a reason this time, as he gets blasted off panel in his final appearance in the series before he tries to murder a child. And that's where Daimon is as a character currently. He'll work with Hydra one day and protect people from them the next. And nobody really bats an eye in universe. I've heard the rationalization that Daimon is just beyond good and evil, which is just plain stupid however you look at it. I know that Marvel has a lot of characters that struggle with their inner darkness and try to do good things instead, so maybe Daimon embracing his inner darkness isn't a huge loss? But I would like to push back on that front for two reasons. One, Daimon is now inconsistent as a character. As a reader, there is almost no idea of how he'll act in a story, especially if what he did in his last appearance is glossed over. He is whatever the writer needs him to be, which might as well be the true death of a fictional character. As when a creator is able to impose their will on an established character that has existed for years without any serious repercussions, it signifies that said character has essentially become wallpaper. They can show up in the background and do whatever they want because it doesn't matter. Finally, by having Daimon embrace his inner darkness, he ends up taking the role his sister had in the Marvel Universe. Zatanna was never really an overwhelmingly popular character, as serving as a member of Luke Cage's Thunderbolts, see if she shows up in the new movie, and being a minor Doctor Strange villain are probably the biggest highlights of her career. But she was a unique character who used her demonic nature to her advantage, even in heroic ways. A role that she now has to share with her brother.